Did you know that a humble tax collector, all the way from Albania, became the founding father of modern-day Egypt? Before we get into the video, I just want to take a moment to shout out my Patreon. If you enjoy my content and want to help me keep producing high-quality videos consistently, consider supporting me there. Your support allows me to put more time, effort and research into making these videos the best they can be. Plus, you'll get exclusive perks as a thank you. The link is in the description below. You see, since the advent of Islam, Egypt has seen many dynasties rise and then fall within its borders, from the Rashiduns to the Ayyubids and to the Mamluks. However, by 1517, the Ottomans had come to rule the country after they had defeated the Mamluks at the Battle of Redania. Turkish rule in Egypt brought a period of relative peace but not of prosperity. Though they did build roads, hospitals and schools, they paid little attention to the maintenance of irrigation and agriculture. Furthermore, Egypt was a difficult province for the Sultan to control due to the continuing power and influence of the Mamluks. As a result, it remained semi-autonomous during Ottoman rule. By the 18th century, the Europeans, most notably Britain and France, took an increasingly greater interest in the Middle East and Asia. This can be seen in the 1770s as the British East India Company sent expeditions to Suez to open a quicker route for Europe to India. Meanwhile, Napoleon Bonaparte had been eyeing up British territories in Asia. He knew that an invasion of Britain was impractical. Thus, he decided that an invasion of Egypt would make more sense. He believed that by conquering and ruling the northeast of Africa, it would get him a step closer to the conquest of India. However, the Ottomans and the French had been in an alliance since 1536. Therefore, France's professed purpose was to overthrow the Mamluks and reassert Ottoman authority in Egypt. In the summer of 1798, Napoleon's army of 35,000 men landed near Alexandria and routed the Mamluk army near Cairo in the so-called Battle of the Pyramids. However, reinforcements and supplies were cut off as Horatio Nelson's British fleet decisively defeated the French fleet anchored in Abu Qir Bay, Egypt. This became known as the Battle of the Nile and effectively trapped Napoleon's army in Egypt. As a result, Napoleon then invaded Syria, where an Ottoman army was being assembled. He took Jaffa, but was checked at Acre, where the defenders were supported by a British naval squadron. His army, which was decimated by the plague, retreated back to Egypt. A Turkish army landed at Abu Qir in pursuit. However, Napoleon annihilated it, but realizing that he had no hope of consolidating his conquest of Egypt in the face of British sea power, as a result, he decided to return back to France in August 1799, where he managed to avoid the British fleet. As a result, he left his army in a rather ineffectual occupation of Egypt. Though this was not for long, as 2 years later, by agreement with Britain and Turkey, the French army was withdrawn to France. Muhammad Ali, later known as Muhammad Ali Pasha, was born in the Sanjak of Kavala in the Rumelia Eyalet to an Albanian family from the Korsha region. He was the second son of a Bektashi Albanian tobacco and shipping merchant named Ibrahim Agha, who served as an Ottoman commander of a small unit in their hometown. However, following the death of his father, he was then raised by his uncle Hussein Agha. After showing hard work, his uncle gave him the rank of Buluk Bashi for the collection of taxes in the town of Kavala. After Muhammad's promising success in collecting taxes, he earned the rank of second commander under his cousin Sara Chesme Halil Agha in the Kavala volunteer contingent of Albanian mercenaries. They were sent to reoccupy Egypt in 1801, following the withdrawal of the French army. The French and then subsequent British withdrawal in Egypt in 1803 created a power vacuum between the Ottomans and the Mamluks. Yet, none emerged victorious. Instead, it went to the commander of the Albanian contingent in the Ottoman army, and that was Muhammad Ali Pasha. After supporting first one side and then the other, Muhammad Ali achieved the mastery of Egypt by a coup d'etat in 1805 and was reluctantly recognized by the Ottoman Sultan as the Pasha also known as the governor of Egypt. Furthermore, 2 years after, in 1807, Muhammad Ali repelled a British invasion at Alexandria, undertaken because of a fleeting alliance between Napoleonic France and the Ottomans. He further consolidated his rule in Egypt, as in 1811 he committed a massacre against the Mamluks. The entire male Mamluk nobility was entertained at a banquet and then slaughtered, which brought an end to the 5.5-century-long Mamluk dominance in Egypt. Following his consolidation of power, Muhammad Ali aimed to modernize Egypt through a series of reforms. His main objective was for Egypt to leave the Ottoman Empire and be ruled by his own hereditary dynasty. Muhammad Ali Pasha implemented significant reforms to centralize Egypt's bureaucracy, enhancing administrative efficiency and consolidating his authority. Initially, he utilized existing Ottoman structures, such as the Roznama executive department and provincial governors known as Nazirs, with kashifs as their subordinates. Village herdmen, or Sheikh al-Balad, formed the basis of this administrative hierarchy. However, in 1824, Muhammad Ali restructured the administration of Egypt, dividing the country into 24 parts, each organized into sub-districts known as Quds, districts as Qism, departments as Mamurias, and provinces as Mudiriyas. He appointed new officials to replace the Ottoman kashifs and nazirs, ensuring direct control over these regions. This reorganization was overseen by the Diwan al-Tafitish Department of Inspectorate, headed by the Mufattish Inspector General. Officials in this new hierarchy had duties such as tax collection, judiciary matters, and reporting on provincial affairs to Cairo. This centralized system enabled Muhammad Ali to exert greater control over Egypt's governance, laying the foundation for a modern state. The next focus of his reforms was education, as he believed that acquiring knowledge from Europe, who were in the ascendancy in the 19th century, would provide the necessary ideas for advancement. As a result, he sent promising students to study in Europe. Students were sent to study European languages, primarily French, so they could in turn translate military manuals into Arabic. He then used both educated Egyptians and European experts to establish schools in his country. European education also provided talented Egyptians with a means of social nobility. Furthermore, Muhammad Ali's reforms also extended to medicine, as he allowed Antoine Clot in 1832 to establish a school of medicine for women in Egypt. The medicinal school for women would produce hakimas, doctores, to treat women and children. French women, adherents of the Saint Simonian social reform movement, were living in Egypt during 1833 to 36 and studied or provided medical care under Clot's direction. Clot argued that female-provided healthcare for women and children was crucial to maintaining a healthy population. Muhammad Ali Pasha also implemented comprehensive reforms at modernizing and expanding Egypt's armed forces. In addition to establishing arms factories in Cairo for the production of muskets and cannons, and constructing a shipyard in Alexandria to build a formidable navy, he also undertook several other significant initiatives. Muhammad Ali introduced conscription to Egypt, compelling peasants to serve in the military. This move aimed to create a disciplined and stable army. To ensure effective training, he employed European advisors, notably French officers, to instruct his troops in modern military tactics and organization. This collaboration led to the formation of a well-trained army capable of executing his expansionist strategies. Beyond the production of small arms and navy vessels, Muhammad Ali sought to establish a self-sufficient military. He initiated the local manufacture of uniforms, equipment, and other military supplies, reducing reliance on foreign imports and bolstering Egypt's autonomy in military logistics. The shipyard in Alexandria became the cornerstone of Egypt's naval power. By the late 1830s, this facility was producing 9 100-gun warships per month, significantly enhancing Egypt's maritime capabilities and enabling power projection across the Eastern Mediterranean and Red Sea regions. But next on the agenda for Muhammad Ali was securing a stable income for Egypt. He achieved this by nationalizing agricultural land. Through heavy taxation on existing tax farms, many of whom were unable to pay, he confiscated their land, placing it under direct state control. He also introduced a tax on Waqf endorsements, which had previously been tax exempt. This not only boosted revenue, but also undercut the power of Egypt's religious and political elites. With full control over agricultural production, Muhammad Ali established a state monopoly. Farmers were required to sell their goods to the state, which then resold them domestically and abroad. This system proved profitable, especially with the introduction of long staple cotton, which became Egypt's most lucrative cash crop. To boost yields, he expanded farmland, upgraded irrigation systems, and relied heavily on forced peasant labor known as corvée. Despite this, average peasant wages quadrupled during Muhammad Ali's reign. He also invested in significant projects such as the construction of the Mahmoudiya Canal, which was completed in 1820, with the canal connecting Alexandria to the Nile. This facilitated easier transportation of goods and contributed to the expansion of trade. He also attempted to launch a textile industry to rival Europe, though this failed. One of the most notorious aspects of Muhammad Ali's reign was his military conquests. Muhammad Ali built one of the most formidable military machines in the Middle East. His military expansions began with the Wahhabi campaign between 1811 to 1818, carried out on behalf of the Ottoman Sultan. Muhammad Ali crushed the Saudi Wahhabi state in the Arabian Peninsula, reconquering the holy cities of Mecca and Medina. This victory significantly elevated his reputation and positioned him as a powerful figure in the Ottoman realm. In Sudan, he expanded Egypt's territory southward between 1820 to 1824, using military expeditions to conquer regions that would become crucial for supplying enslaved soldiers, gold, and other resources for his empire. He then turned his attention to Greece, where he sent a well-trained Egyptian army under his son, Ibrahim Pasha, to assist the Ottomans in suppressing the Greek War of Independence. Despite initial military success and a brutal campaign, the conflict ended in disappointment after the Battle of Navarino in 1827, where the combined fleets of Britain, France, and Russia decisively defeated the Egyptian Ottoman fleet. This marked Muhammad Ali's first major defeat on the international stage and highlighted the vulnerability of his ambitions in the face of European intervention. Nevertheless, he continued his expansion. In 1831, Muhammad Ali launched his most audacious campaign against the Ottoman Empire itself. His army, again led by Ibrahim Pasha, swept through Syria and Palestine, defeating Ottoman forces at Homs, Beirut, and ultimately at the Battle of Konya in 1832, bringing them within striking distance of Istanbul, the capital of the Ottoman Empire. This campaign stunned the European powers and the Ottomans alike. For a brief moment, it seemed like Muhammad Ali might overthrow the Ottoman Sultan altogether. However, this success alarmed the great powers of Europe, as Britain, Russia, Austria, and Prussia intervened diplomatically and militarily to preserve the Ottoman state and maintain the balance of power. Muhammad Ali was forced to retreat from Anatolia and accept a negotiated settlement. He was later allowed to keep Syria and parts of Arabia under Egyptian rule, but only temporarily. His final military confrontation came in 1839 when the Ottomans, under Sultan Mahmud II, launched a renewed attempt to crush his independence. Ibrahim Pasha again defeated the Ottoman army at the Battle of Nizpit, but this victory was short-lived. The British and Austrians imposed a blockade on Egypt and forced Muhammad Ali, under the Convention of London, to relinquish all his territorial gains outside Egypt and Sudan. He was allowed to rule Egypt as a hereditary governor, but had to abandon his dreams of an empire. While Muhammad Ali Pasha never secured full independence from the Ottoman Empire, his reign marked a significant turning point in Egyptian history. Through a series of sweeping reforms and ambitious military campaigns, he laid the groundwork for a modern Egyptian state. His desire to build a powerful army led to the creation of a centralized bureaucracy, an improved economy and education system, which were all unprecedented in Egypt at the time. Although his expansionist dreams were ultimately curtailed by the European powers, his efforts were far from in vain. Muhammad Ali and his descendants would go on to rule Egypt and Sudan for over 150 years. And his legacy rendered Egypt a de facto independent state long before it achieved official sovereignty. In the end, Muhammad Ali did not just wage war on the battlefields, but also reshaped Egypt itself.